The morning sunlight poured through the towering glass windows of the Caldwell mansion, but even the warm rays couldn't chase away the cold worry that hovered in every room. For months, 12-year-old Avellini Caldwell, daughter of one of the richest men in the city, had been wasting away, growing weaker, paler, and more fragile with each passing day. Doctors came and left with clipped voices and puzzled faces, prescribing medicines that barely did anything. Every corner of the mansion whispered fear, and the staff moved as if grief was already waiting at the door. No one knew what was happening. No one, until the new nanny arrived. If you believe kindness can create miracles and everyone deserves a second chance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Good Soul to support more heart-touching stories. But before that miracle unfolded, pain ruled the household. Avellini was once a bright, laughing girl who danced barefoot in their private orchard and painted wildflowers on her bedroom walls. Now she struggled to lift her head from the pillow. She coughed through the night, shivered through the day, and her once sparkling eyes dimmed like a candle fighting to stay alive. Her father, Magnus Caldwell, a stern yet deeply broken man, drowned himself in work, believing money and influence could buy answers. Her stepmother, Helena, maintained her cold distance, offering sympathy that felt rehearsed rather than real. And so the house's weight fell on the staff, who adored Avellini but felt helpless as she faded in front of them. Then came Nora Hale, the nanny who didn't look like someone hired for a millionaire's mansion. She had gentle eyes, a quiet voice, and a kind of calm that wrapped around others like a warm blanket. She wasn't impressed by wealth or intimidated by silence. She cared, truly cared, and the moment she saw Avellini, something tightened in her chest, a sense that the girl wasn't just sick, she was hiding a deeper pain. Nora spent her days in that sunlit yet lonely room on the third floor, brushing Avellini's hair, reading her stories, and staying awake through the long nights when the girl coughed until her small body trembled. She noticed things the doctors overlooked, how Avellini refused to sleep alone, how her eyes darted toward the floor whenever night approached, and how she clutched her blanket as if protecting herself. Nora's instincts whispered that the sickness wasn't coming from her body, but from her fear. One afternoon, when Avellini finally fell asleep after hours of exhaustion, Nora began cleaning the room quietly. As she swept near the bed, a faint rustling froze her mid-motion. It wasn't the wind, nor the shifting of blankets. It came from under the bed. Carefully, she lowered herself to the floor and lifted the hanging sheet. It was dark under there, too dark for daylight, but a shape curled tightly in the corner caught her eye. Nora leaned closer, her breath trembling. A tiny boy, maybe 7 years old, covered in dust, fear, and bruises. He flinched when their eyes met, pressing himself further into the shadows as if he had lived there for years. Nora's heart dropped into her stomach. She realized instantly why Avellini never slept, why she jolted awake screaming, why she trembled whenever the room darkened. She hadn't been imagining things. She had been protecting someone. The boy's voice was barely a whisper. His name was Rian, and he came from one of the orphan shelters Magnus' wife oversaw. Helena, desperate for public admiration and charitable recognition, brought children occasionally to sponsor. But some children mysteriously disappeared from the records. And now Nora knew why. Rian told her that Helena hid him under the bed to keep him out of sight, threatening him into silence, forcing Avellini to care for him in secret. Avellini slipped food to him at night, whispered stories to keep him from crying, and shouldered the burden of protecting him alone. The weight of fear, guilt, and sleeplessness had slowly destroyed her health. Nora gathered Rian gently into her arms and carried him downstairs. Avellini awoke moments later, frantic to find him gone, but when she saw Nora holding him safely, she collapsed into tears. Magnus came running at the sound of his daughter's sobs. And for the first time, the truth shattered everything. Magnus listened, truly listened, as Avellini confessed everything through trembling breaths. His face drained of color, his hands shaking with a rage and heartbreak he could no longer contain. All the wealth in the world hadn't told him what was happening inside his own home. Helena's carefully crafted image fell apart in seconds as staff came forward with small memories, little suspicions they'd been too afraid to voice. Magnus ordered security to escort Helena out immediately, vowing she would face legal consequences for every child she hurt. For Avellini, Rian, and Nora, healing didn't come instantly. But with the mansion finally cleared of darkness, sunlight seemed warmer, rooms felt safer, and Avellini's strength slowly returned. Magnus publicly took responsibility for Rian, promising him a life where he would never hide under a bed again. Nora became more than just a nanny, she became family. Avellini's health blossomed in the weeks that followed. She played again. She laughed again. She slept peacefully for the first time in months. And each morning, when she saw Rian sitting beside her at breakfast, she was reminded that courage doesn't always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like a frightened girl protecting a more frightened boy, until someone finally listened. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please engage with the video. Your support helps more people discover these emotional, life-changing stories. Special request: before you leave, please comment what lesson you learned from this story. It means more than you know. Thank you for watching.